Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday.
Welcome to Polite as Fuck podcast.
Your regular podcast full of polite as fuck ladies.
Regular podcast full of polite as fuck ladies. We've been doing this a year now, and we still don't know how to
Fucking start the episode normally. Like normal human beings.
I feel like we maybe should have like a script, like something that we say every time.
Yeah. Like a cue card behind. Good morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday.
My name is Erica.
My name is Ellie.
And we're here to talk about dry spells.
But first, we had a little
But first,
bump
we'd like
in the
to
road.
talk about public transportation in the United States of America.
Because it is basically non-existent.
Yeah. So, I don't know if we've talked about this already, but I don't really have a functioning vehicle at the moment. I mean, I do, but, like, it seems like at any moment it could die. So, I'm a little scared to drive it. And I also don't have a job, so I'm a little nervous to buy a new car because I don't have a form of income.
There's just a lot of things.
Just a lot of things. And so, luckily, San Diego has a really lovely train that I used to take to work when I had a job. And the thing is, I feel like because no one uses public transportation, the times for the train, it's like once every hour, which I feel like if people took it more regularly, it would be more often.
30 minutes or something
at
like
least,
that.
yeah. So, I've had some really interesting experiences at the train station alone. One of them being, like, I would drive there, park my car, and you never know who's going to be hanging out around your car when you get back.
Yeah.
One time, there was this whole, like, they had unpacked. They were, like, set up right in front of my car. Mm-hmm. They had stuff on my car, like, on the hood of my car. Like, they were just, like,
Using it
using it as a table, basically. And I was like, excuse me, this is my car, I need to leave. And then the guy thought that it would be funny to play like a prank that I ran over his puppy.
Wait, this is the first time I'm hearing this story.
I think because you used to get home so late that I had, like...
You'd already processed it.
It already processed, yeah.
You're so different.
But I was thinking about this today when I was like, how is this happening? Which I'll tell today's story, but he literally was like, like, as I'm reversing, and I don't have a backup camera, I don't have anything, so I, like, slam on my brakes, I'm, like, roll down my window, I was like, oh my gosh, did I hit something? And he's like, my puppy! And I, like, can't even begin to tell you the feelings that were happening inside of me, like, I wanted to throw up, I was, like, gonna cry.
Yeah.
And then the girl that he was with was like, oh my gosh, stop teasing her. And he's like, haha, I'm just kidding. I was like...
I would have popped off.
It was like probably a
you.
15-second thing that happened. But I like didn't even know what to do. I was like, okay. And then I drove away. So just like things like that. I don't know. So today I go to meet someone up in Encinitas, and I take the train because I don't want my car to die, and because it goes every hour, and I'm wearing these like plastic clogs that were like $5 at Target, so they're like not the best shoe.
Really cute though.
Really cute, but like the coffee shop we met at was at the other side of the town, and then I'm trying to like sprint back to get to the train in time, but like I can't really run because the shoe is rubbing my foot raw, and then I see the train and I'm like, I'm not gonna make it. Then the train leaves, so then I'm like, I'm not gonna sit here. Oh, because they don't have one running at lunchtime. They have one at 11:55, and then they have the next one at 1:55.
I was going to say, I feel like it's more than an hour, like longer than an hour that they come.
Yeah.
It's like an hour and 35 minutes or something.
Yeah.
Not
So I was
regularly, wow, you're just going to be like, okay, cool, bye.
Like,
in the next
we
one.
have to record the podcast. We need to clean the house. I thought I would be home by like 12:30. So then I go and I walk to the bus station, get on the bus, have to take the bus. Like, it literally was 35 stops to the trolley. Then I get to the trolley, which is, of course, right across from the Mormon temple. And I just have to sit there and look at the Mormon temple.
your Snapchat of you. It started off with your shoe. And then it zoomed out to the temple, like the top of the temple with whoever that angel or guy is. And then your face at the end. I wish there was enough time to screenshot, but there isn't. It's like so quick, but you were just like, you were defeated.
I was.
Your hair is like blowing in the wind and you're just like, I fucking hate everything.
Yeah, I do. And then I get on the trolley and it's packed. And there's this guy, which, like, it makes me so sad, but I don't know what to do. He, like, clearly has some mental health issues, is in, like, a wheelchair, like, filthy. Like, his hands are, like, very dirty. He has sweatpants that are, like...
soiled?
His stuff's, like, almost out. Basically, like, his butt cheeks are out, but, like, the front is almost out as well. And, like, I didn't really know where to go because it's packed. So then I'm just, like, standing there. And I'm like, here we go.
His penis slowly come out of his sweatpants onto you.
I'm just like, what? I would take public transportation if it wasn't like this.
I know.
Which I feel like I took it in third world countries like Peru. I took it in Europe. Great. Yes, you can't, like, people are weird. There's weird stuff happening all the time. But, like, there's a lot of normal people taking it.
Mm-hmm.
But not in San Diego because everyone's driving. That's why there's so much traffic. And all of the really most interesting people I've ever encountered are on public transit. It took me 2 hours to get back, what should have been, like, a 35-minute journey.
Yeah, you could have walked home at that time. You should have just took off your shoes and
honestly.
Fuck it.
Yeah.
No, I totally agree with you. Public transportation in this country is ridiculous. It just has, like, such a bad, like, reputation. It really does. And, like, I wish more people took advantage. I mean, there are normal people in America that take it, but it's just not as used or utilized as in other countries. Like, every other country that I've visited, the two that I've been at, like, the public transportation is so easy to understand. Mm-hmm. And, like, the cleanliness of those, like, trains or buses or whatever is just so different than the ones here. And the, like, what do you call it? Like, where you go, like, the stops or, like, where the parking area, it's not, like, a sketchy spot.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what the fuck, America? I
really don't understand.
If we made it, especially in San Diego, if we were to prioritize it more, traffic would not be as crazy. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm sure so many other things, but that's, like, the main thing that I can think of right now. Because the traffic just, like, is too much.
Too much. And it's, I know we're just, like, complaining, but I just...
Fuck it.
I'm like, why did we build cities? Who urban planning decided, like, let's make things so inconvenient to walk to or, like, to bike to? Like, I have to drive to the train station because I really can't take my bike there because I'd have to get on a freeway, which I'm not going to get on a freeway on my bike.
Yeah.
It's just, like, it doesn't make any sense.
Well, I said this about San Diego, too. At least, like, when I lived in the Bay Area, there were at least, like, back roads. So, like, if you didn't want to take the highways or the freeways or anything, there was a way to go around. It would be longer, but it was, like, there were back roads. There are no back roads here.
It all leads to the freeway.
Leads to one spot. You're just taking a longer time to get to, like, the next exit. There's no, like, way to weave through it, which is so annoying.
Yeah. I don't know who...
Portland, there were back roads. Where else have I lived? There were, like, other ways to get to places that were, like, side streets that would have taken maybe, like, longer, but was less, like, either more, like, stop signs or stop lights, and, like, it just, like a housing area.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I would much rather go slower and at least be moving or be able to, like, walk or bike, sort of, than to be, like, in traffic and not doing anything.
Yeah. I just sometimes I'm like, can we just, like, restart? Like, let's just, like, reorganize this town.
We're just still building on top of things. Oh my gosh.
It doesn't make any sense.
There's, like, one Instagram person who does, like, I don't know what, like, the actual wording is, but they, like, use some sort of, like, graphic design tool to show what it would look like if we got rid of freeways. So they take, like, big cities and not what it looked like like back then before the freeway was there, but what it would look like now just with smaller streets and how like green, like how many more like housing units we could have, how like many more gardens or just like green space we'd have. And I just think that's so interesting if we were to do that. And we could only do that if we eliminate cars and do public transportation.
Yeah. Like, we don't have like a city center. Like, I feel like a lot of old cities are built around a city center that spans out, and then the public transportation goes around, and then
San Diego doesn't have that.
No, I feel like most, like LA, I'm like, I don't even know where the center is.
Yeah,
like you have your downtown, but that's not really like what the city is like
built upon.
Yeah,
I don't know either. I'm not
gonna get into urban planning, but if you are
an urban planner,
is that what it is?
I don't know. I love that you came up with it. I'm just saying what you're saying. Like, you're smart. I'm like, oh, fuck, she knows what it is.
Someone designed it, right?
Yeah. I don't know why was there a question mark after that?
I mean, I don't know. Like, I would be very curious to be there at, like, the start of a city. You know? Yeah. Like, how does it come to be? And who decides how we're going to structure things?
Well, think of, like, back home. Like, they're building so much more in Minden and Gardnerville than what's been there before. It's just going to keep getting bigger and bigger. Mm-hmm. And even then, they basically cut out old 395 and put in, what is that, the 530? Whatever that freeway is. You're horrible with numbers.
Literally, I'm like, the road that goes by the sewage plant, or the road that goes by the Walmart? Which one? I don't know.
Yeah, well, I don't know.
Anyway, but Boston actually did have some like decent transportation. Like, we didn't have a car when we were there. Yeah. And that, I feel like that was part of why I was like, oh, I could live here, because I wouldn't need a car. I could, and like seeing kids on public transit, I'm like, if I was like 14 and had public transportation and could just like go and hang out and do things, like, you really couldn't do that because you had to have your parents drive you places. Yep. And like, I don't know, it's just a different world when you have access, but it's really not, the West Coast has not figured it out, I don't think.
Side tangent, did you take the bus as a kid? Like,
the school bus?
School? Yeah. School bus. Yeah, that's what I meant, school bus, yeah.
Why?
Did you enjoy your school bus experience?
I was such a kiss ass. I, like, loved the bus drivers. I would, like, sit in the front and, like, be friends with them and, like, bring them treats, and they'd bring me treats.
You're
so
cute. I love it.
Did you have a good experience?
I was the last stop, last pickup.
You were out there.
Yeah, we were the last pickup, and I hated it because I was still like, I just remember going from being homeschooled to having to ride the bus with like, I mean, thank God it wasn't like a humongous town, but I really did not like it, and there was like such a strict rule on like max 3 people to a seat, but they really only wanted to keep it 2. But when you're the last person and everybody else already has 2 people and you have to find a spot, oh god, it just brought me so much anxiety.
Your bus was that full?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because they did that whole back, they went all the way, like, not to Topaz, but they went like far, I don't know what that area is, and then came all the way back to go to Paululu, and it was, yeah, we were the last ones. I hated it.
Dang. So I don't think I ever had...
Until I, like, had friends, and then I was like, save me a spot.
3 to a seat. That's a packed bus.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I had that. And I was lucky enough that, like, Savannah and I were both on the bus. So, like, we could hang out together, my sister. And we would make, like, our little, like, lanyard bracelets. And
yeah. That's so cute. I hated it. Anyway, public transportation.
Anyway, guys. That's our tangent, but that's not what we're talking about, and let's dive in. So, I feel like this came about because we asked on Instagram what people wanted us to talk about, and this got a lot of votes.
Everybody's going through the same thing, I guess.
Dry spell.
Dry spell.
How do you define a dry spell?
I would just, like, define it as not having sex for an extended period of time. Mm-hmm. It's set, like, I know people say, like, sometimes weeks or months, but I would do months into years. Because I don't think...
Weeks is a dry spell.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just seems
I wouldn't name it.
You were on vacation.
Yeah,
or
just taking a break. Whereas like a dry spell, enough to put a name on it is like you've recognized like, ooh, it's been a minute.
It's like a drought.
It is. It is. I'm experiencing one as we speak.
I guess I didn't realize when we had asked it that like it's really only associated with like sex. In my mind, it was like a dry spell is like you just haven't really like been with a person, like whether that's intimately.
Yeah.
Something's wrong. Whether that's physically or like gone on multiple dates or something. I don't know. But I guess dry spell is just the sex part.
Yeah, that's how I would say.
Okay.
But I mean, I guess you could like, that's what I say. If someone were just to say like, I'm in a dry spell, like period, I would think, oh, they haven't had sex for a while. But if I were to say like, I've been in a dry spell in like dating and you add something on the end, I would just assume that it's like been a while.
Since you've like been out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think too, I consider a dry spell not like having sex, but still like masturbating.
Oh, yeah.
I would not take a year off masturbating for sure.
That would be a really long time. I don't know. I mean, some people just don't have like a high libido.
Yeah.
Can't really relate, but
Wonder what that's like. I just find okay. I have a few thoughts around like dry spells and all this stuff. I wish, and that's what we're here for, is to like break this thing of it being like a bad thing, because I always like, I haven't had sex for a while, and so when we were talking about wanting to do this episode and like putting a name on it, it wasn't until I put a name on it of like saying like, oh, I'm in a dry spell, did I start to feel like self-conscious about that. And then I'm like, okay, why am I feeling it just like brought all of these like thoughts and feelings around it. And so I just want to like break it of like it's normal, and like your body goes through like cycles of like being interested in wanting to have sex or having a high libido or having low or whatever. I also think that there are so many more factors that play into it. I also think that it's totally normal even if you're single and even if you're in a relationship, because that's just like life.
It's a good point. Like you can be in a dry spell and still be dating someone.
Yeah. And I think that that's when I like just looked at some stuff like online, that was actually one of the more like the most searched up thing when it comes to dry spell is like, is it healthy to have a dry spell in your relationship? It just seems like a lot of people are really nervous if their partner and them like aren't having sex. And I totally relate to that. And when I start to think of like a dry spell, I immediately turn it on myself and have like identity issues of like thinking, is there something wrong with me? Like, is something going on? Like, what's wrong with me? Is it my like appearance? am I not interesting enough? Am I not wanted by people? And so it's a little, not easier, but like, it is a little easier to be on a dry spell when you're single, because I'm already having those thoughts anyways, but then I can just like let it go out of my mind. I'm like, oh, that's not really a priority for me right now, or I can pin it on other things like being busy with work or whatever. But I remember being in my previous relationship and like hardly ever having like intimacy, and when there was intimacy, there was always this like disconnect. It really felt like lust to not love, of like what's the saying, like means to an end, you know, like it felt like just like not, it didn't like feel right.
You were horny or whatever, and it was just like to make
there.
it. Yeah.
Yes, it wasn't like this like passionate getting to know someone, allowing someone in, what like I think intimacy and sex should be. And I like really struggled with the feeling of like, oh, I'm not, like it's something's wrong with me, I'm not wanted. So when I was experiencing like a dry spell in that sense in a relationship, like you really do feel like it gives you like so much anxiety. And so and then like some of the advice that I was reading was like, oh, just like talk to your partner. But I think it goes like so much deeper than that, because you know, not everybody, you know, especially if you're just getting to know someone, are you going to feel comfortable to like sit them down and have a conversation around like why we're not having sex. And so, like, it was a conversation that I would try to have with my partner at the time a lot, and it never, like, ended well. And so I think that was just really, like, I just struggled with that a lot. And even, like, in a relationship that I thought was, like, you know, at, like, the end game, sort of. And so I think thinking of, like, the dry spell now, I feel a little bit better because I feel like more like I have no one else to blame but myself. And so it's not a me problem, so to speak, because if I really wanted to, I could change it. You know what I mean? So I think, like, it's important to, I think, differentiate the two of, like, whether you're having, like, a dry spell if you're single or having a dry spell if you're in a relationship and what that means. I also think, too, like, the conversation around sex is, like, I think back to the conversation that we were having with friends last night and how, like, open people were getting and how very uncomfortable.
I was literally dying.
I get, like, hiding yourself and you're literally taking your jacket and hiding yourself. And I just want to, like, we don't have, like, the podcast isn't, like, necessarily, like, all around about sex.
Yeah.
But I do appreciate the conversations that we do have around sex because I feel like, and we've said this in the past, is, like, we're not going to be full on, like, vulgar. But I think a lot of people can relate to where we are and who we are, that when we do talk about it, it makes me feel so much better about it. So I think me personally, being in a dry spell myself, I'm like, okay, this seems like a perfect time to have this conversation and kind of break down what that means for me as a single person, because I think, like I said, it looks different whether you're single or in a relationship.
I feel like when I was thinking about this topic, I really haven't had sex this year. I've had, okay, we don't need to talk about how many times I've had sex. But
it was mine with him and mine.
But I have been tracking in my phone, as you guys know, all the dates that I've been on. And they have not led all of them to sex. And it's been exhausting. It's been fun and funny, but also, like, so draining. I counted before this episode. This isn't total. I have been on 23 first dates this year. 23.
Guess how many I've been on. I'll leave it up to you guys.
But, like, I've had funny stories come from it. But honestly, I felt the most content, like, the last 2 months, and I really haven't gone on any dates. And I feel like the dates weren't with the intention of, like, having sex, but I've had casual sex in the last few months, and I felt like the best. Because I feel like it was, like, on my terms. It was... we were out having a good night or whatever, and it was something that I wanted to do, and it wasn't, like, trying to, like, check it off the list or, like, I owe it to this person type thing. I feel like because of these dates, I found more of, like, my voice in when I want to and don't want to, which I feel like has made it more, not necessarily enjoyable, because I will say it hasn't been, like, great. But I haven't felt, like, awful about myself, which if you listen to any of the earlier episodes, like last year, that was how I was feeling. I feel like I didn't have any, like, yes, I did have control, but I felt like I didn't really have a voice in, like, when I'm having sex and, like, with who, even though, like, yes, I could have, but I don't think I really, like, knew how to find that in myself. So I feel like my choice now, when I do or don't, I'm more, like, at peace with it if I don't have it for an extended period of time. Yeah. Type thing.
I think that's such a good point. I think I'd say I'm a little different. I feel like ending last year and then coming into this year, I started just to feel like doing it for the wrong reasons. Like, I felt so good, and then it was like this immediate high, this instant gratification of, like, I feel wanted, this person wants me, it feels good, I wanted it, so I jumped into it. And then the more and more, like, I would have an experience like that, I just felt so disconnected with myself, and I felt I kind of taken away, like, the shame piece, which I'm very proud of myself for doing that, because it was, like, my choice, but there was a disconnect with my body. Like, I just did not feel like I was happy. It was not good. And I didn't want to do that with like people that I didn't know. And we've talked about this before of like sometimes when you have sex for the first time with someone, it's not going to be like it gets better because you're starting to learn. But these people that I was having sex with weren't people that I was like, let's do it again. Like I was like, okay, this is enough.
I don't want to learn.
Yeah, I don't want to learn you. Don't want you to learn me. I'm done.
Yeah.
So then I started to just be like, okay, I got it in my head of like, okay, well, I only want to have sex with people that like mean something to me. And then I was like seeing this guy and it was really great and we just like really clicked, especially in the bedroom, which is something that I have not had in like a really, really long time. And so when that kind of ended, I just felt like I'm not really ready to just have like random casual sex. And then I just started to think in my mind like, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And then when I was put in situations where it might happen, I just was like, I'm okay. I'm good without that. And so I think now I'm just in a space where like again, it wasn't until recently that I felt like I was in a dry spell. And I think that's only because we were like trying to think of like figuring out what we wanted to talk about and like what our listeners wanted to hear, that I put a name on it, that I was like, wait, like I am in a dry spell, I guess. But I don't think of it as like anything negative or have any negative effects or have even really been like upset by it, because I feel like I just didn't want to. Because I feel like in the past, if I ever wanted to, I would have sex. Like it wasn't something that I would like shy away from. And I think now it's not that I'm like waiting for the next person I'm going to be in a relationship with, but I'm also not really wanting to just like go and meet somebody random, have sex with them and then be done like I've done in the past. Like it's just not something that I feel. I just don't like the feeling afterwards, and I feel like very like disconnected, and I don't feel, it's almost like a high. It feels like a drug, and I don't want to feel that way anymore of like, okay, I need this feeling to feel wanted, and then it puts me in this whole like cycle of, oh, I feel so good because I did this, and then like, oh, what's gonna happen? Do we like each other? I don't really like him. Now what? Now I have to start all over. It just feels very disconnected. So I'm glad to have that space. But I'm not going to lie, it's hard. And it's hard to not, I mean, human interaction and human, like, physical contact is so important and so healthy. And so to not have that and to sometimes feel like my only option to have that is to be, like, to go out, get drunk, find someone, go home and have that. Like, that doesn't seem appealing to me either. So it's like, how can I find this balance and still feel good about myself after? So that's where I'm at.
I was reading this article in Vogue, and it was talking about this girl, her friend, who hadn't had sex in more than 2 years, and she was like really fine with it. It was really like her choice, and she wasn't making an effort to like go out on dates, and she was just like focused on hanging out with friends and her career and yada yada. And she was interviewing this friend for this article, and the friend, this girl Emma, was like basically kind of what you were saying, is like if you don't really think about it, like if you're just content in your life and doing what you're doing until someone asks you when's the last time you had sex or something, and then is when you're like, oh, I'm in a dry spell, what's wrong with me, or like, should I be having sex? I guess I need to change that. And this like cycle in the article is like, when you first stop having sex, you feel crazy and desperate. Yep. Before you know it, you've eased into the non-craving indifferent part, which can last a surprisingly long time. But then eventually, even if someone points it out, or when you realize, either because of the lack of sex or lack of emotional attention, you start to feel lonely or depressed or long for some type of contact or relationship. And this girl Emma in the story, like, basically was like, oh, actually I'm ready for some sex, got on Tinder, hooked up with like the first guy, and it was awful, and then it kind of like set her back a while. And so I feel like I thought that was interesting, because not that our stories are similar, but just this attitude of like, oh, do I need to just do this just to like get it out of my system, which is kind of an attitude I've had before. And then you like, it really does impact you more than it helps you, I think.
Yeah.
And when it's like, I don't know. I feel like right now, for me, at least, I'm like making an effort with like my friends and like figuring out what I want to do next. And it just seems like there's a lot more that I'm excited about outside of having sex with some random person that like if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And I don't really care.
Yeah.
Whereas sometimes when it's like, oh, I just need to get it out of my system, that can really like impact you mentally and emotionally. And I don't know, I feel like the finding peace part of finding peace in a dry spell is like being content with yourself and with your life, which is easier said than done. But
I think a lot of it too, for me, not a lot of it, but as we were talking about it, something that just came to my mind, and maybe this is why like I haven't or feel like I'm ready to put myself in these positions, is because I came off birth control. And like I am so afraid to have conversations with people about that because of my like relationships or lack of relationships in the past. Like before, it was like so easy to have casual sex because I'm like, I'm on birth control. I don't need to
really
explain
matter.
anything to you. I can go to your place, no questions asked. We don't need to build any sort of relationship or friendship or even really talk to you, to be honest. So now it's like, I don't crave those. Like I would, not even like a relationship, but I would like to at least like have some sort of like feeling about somebody.
Yeah.
But then it's like to be so vulnerable to talk with them about like my birth control and my health, like it's just very scary to me. So I'm just kind of like, now that I'm talking about it, feel like maybe I have really just been on the back burner because I'm afraid to open up that conversation because of the fear of like, you know, it's happened before where guys are very like pressed about whether or not you're on birth control, and that's not I wouldn't consider that trauma, but it almost feels like a form of rejection. So I'm like, when I'm single and I'm on this dry spell, it feels safe and secure and very easy to make that decision myself, and I can list out all of the great things that have happened to me since not having sex. But I also think too, to be like as like open as I can be, is I'm scared. And I'm scared to have that conversation with someone because what about if their comfort level and their like what their boundaries are, that's going to be a no. And so to like not have sex for an extended amount of time and then be like, okay, I'm ready, and then to like the possibility of like being turned down, I guess, is just like, I don't know. Well, I mean, like rejection does not feel good, but like when you have not even, like for someone like me where I haven't been in like the dating scene for a while, the fear of rejection almost gets like bigger and bigger and bigger, like scarier and scarier. So I feel like maybe that is like something that's happening to me.
Yeah.
Because of that birth control aspect of it.
Okay, as you were saying that, you unlocked a piece of my brain that
Great.
I feel like, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but just based on conversations we've been having of this, like, have we talked about this? I don't know what things we've said on the podcast and what we've said in our living room, but I'm going to repeat things probably. So we've talked about, like, writing a letter to our, like, future partner.
Right.
Which is an activity that I did very recently. It was, like, really cathartic and emotional and good for me. And I feel like the beginning of what I was writing in my notebook was really like, I've been avoiding doing this because I feel like I've either been scared or am like kind of blocking myself from being like the love that I want and the relationship that I want and deserve exists. Because in my mind, there's this piece of fear of like, maybe it doesn't. And maybe I won't have that, and maybe I, like, need to settle, but I also don't even know what I want, and this whole battle in my mind.
Yeah.
And so I also feel like part of why I've been more okay now than I have in a really long time with, like, dating and sex and everything is, like, I feel like I am not wanting to waste my time with, like, men and dating and things that I know aren't what I want in the long run. Like, I've gone on so many dates that it's like I knew even before going on the date that, like, this isn't someone that I would see a future with.
Yeah.
And then I would waste so much of my time and I'm just be frustrated. And as you were saying that, I was like skimming this article, and it was like, I spend so much of my money when I'm single going out and then wasting the next day being hungover, and then sex is consuming my brain, but then it like creates this tension and anxiety, and then I'm having these fantasies, and then when they don't live out in my head, then I'm like, and this the spiral that you can kind of go on.
Oh, fully.
And so I feel like taking a step back and being like, what is it actually that I want? And allowing yourself to be like, that exists. Instead of saying like, oh, maybe it does. Because that has really been, I feel like, holding me back.
Yeah.
Of like, oh, maybe it doesn't. Oh, maybe I won't have that. Oh, maybe it's not in San Diego. Oh, maybe. And like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seriously. Exactly the same feelings. And I think too, like, it is just scary. I'm hesitant to even like work towards anything. Like everybody's like, not everybody, but you just think and logically thinking of like, okay, I'm unhappy. Not that I'm unhappy, but like, okay, I'm ready for a relationship. Like I'm really ready for the next step in like love, to find someone, to get back into it. But am I really ready to take the steps for what it takes? I'm like, okay, I've tried dating apps sort of, and I've already said to myself like, that's not for me. I'm not in a headspace to even do that. Whatever. So I've like crossed that out. But then I don't really put myself out there. I don't talk to people. We said it before, is like we go out and I'm automatically like, if you are someone that I have no interest in talking to, I can shut your ear off. As soon as the most attractive person walks by, I'm automatically like,
I know, like, look at them from, like, the side.
Yeah, just like, oh, or give them, like, I just, it just doesn't make any sense. I don't allow myself to be open, and I'm giving off this, like, energy that's not, like, open, come talk to me. I'm like, oh, closed off, awkward, giving off that energy. Like, of course someone's not going to, like, what makes someone so attractive is when they're open with their body language. Yeah, they're approachable, their body language, they're having a good time, they're smiling. And so I'm like, if there was a mirror and I looked at myself, like, would I want to come and talk to myself? Probably not. But I'm not taking these steps. And so I feel like a lot, ever since we talked about that letter, like, activity, I've been thinking a lot about, like, okay, well, what am I comfortable in doing? And I think, like, within this dry spell, being able to take, like, a second to, like, fall in love with myself. I don't know if you feel this way, but I feel like sometimes when, in my past relationship, and then having, like, sex with other people after my relationship, I wasn't, like, sex can be, like, good, and I can still, like, enjoy myself, but it doesn't mean that it's great, or I'm having, like, things aren't about me, and I like when things are about me. So I'm, like, I feel like, like I said, the disconnect from my body, and, like, not enjoyable or anything like that. So I started to think, okay, like, well, what is it that I like? And, like, not to get too into it, but when you masturbate, you have those feelings. But I even, like, sometimes take away, like, even the, like, masturbation piece of it, because I'm like, okay, I need to disconnect from that too. And so I've even just started, like, what clothes make me feel good and sexy and feel great? Like, what jewelry, what, like, spaces and like, settings make me feel good, and how can I, like, put myself in those places to, like, show, like, give off that energy. Does that make sense what I'm saying? So I've been, like, trying to do that, because I feel like, okay, that's a tangible goal that I can set for myself and accomplish. But it is, like, that piece that plays in my head. Like, even yesterday, talking with a group of friends, I'm like, I know this about myself. I know that I live in the past. I know that when something in my life isn't checking a box, I automatically am like, okay, I'm done. Like, let me pin it on anything. So I'm like, oh, I have to leave San Diego. I literally have to leave the city because there's no one here for me. Like, I've said that multiple times, and I hear it coming out, and I'm still like, no, there's no one. I am confident that this is not the place. But then I'm like, we talk, and you're like, well, is that really true? Is that really the case? It's just,
I think it goes to, like, the part of the letter is, like, or I honestly wish I could.
This activity up. This activity is just made up.
We act like we, like, found it somewhere, and I'm like, I don't know what the rules are to this activity.
There's no prompt. We just I don't even know.
But I think
the history of this activity.
Part of the rule that we don't know of this activity is that you write these like attributes or whatever, characteristics, and like how I framed it was like, thank you for like being patient with me, thank you for blah blah blah, and then trying to like live out those, or like live in a way that you can attract that. And I do feel like a big part of it too is like we've both gone out, gotten shit-faced, it's like 1 a.m, and then I think we're both guilty of being like, there's no one here for me. Mm-hmm. It's like, why? Mm-hmm. Why? Yes, we are doing it. So yeah, sure, maybe our like person is doing that too. But I feel like even if they are, I'm probably not going to meet them in their best state because I'm not in my best state.
Yeah.
And so it's like prioritizing time and energy to do things that you enjoy and being able to like be approachable and engaging in those settings too.
Yeah.
I think is something that I forget. And like when you're on a hike or when you're like, and I haven't done this. This is just a very fresh thing that I'm like trying to work on, is like being like smiling and being like engaging and seeming like maybe we could stop and talk type thing, instead of like, oh, the only opportunity is at 1 a.m. before the bar closes.
Yeah.
You know?
It's just hard because I have such a bitch face. And sometimes like I don't want to interact with people. So I really have to have like a conversation with myself of like, am I comfortable? That's why I say like the setting is so important. Because there are some settings where I'm like, I will not go talk to someone because I'm not comfortable. Like, I'm fine being here, but I'm not going to go out of my comfort zone to go talk to this random person because there's always that fear of rejection, fear of someone saying, like, something really nasty, which is very unlikely, but those feelings, those thoughts really do, like, play, like, they creep in and can, like, manipulate you into, like, not doing something or whatever.
Yeah.
So it becomes, like, really difficult, but yeah, just allowing yourself, or like I need to learn how to like allow myself to be more approachable.
Yeah.
It's so hard.
It's so hard. Well, okay, so I think about very recently, like 3 days ago, we went surfing. It was the worst
We did do that.
surfing I've ever done in my life. I looked at my phone before we left and it said beach hazard. Like, literally, don't get in the water. And I'm like, oh, I'm sure it's not for where we're going surfing.
And we're whitewash gals.
Yeah.
Okay, we like to splash around.
I like to jump on my board and
Kind of like we're swimmers, so we can paddle. It's the standing up piece that we can't do.
Yeah. I mean, occasionally we get it. But not in this setting, because it was the most insane waves I've ever been in. The whitewash was literally drowning me. So I have to swim. We have to swim out past the whitewash in order to like breathe for a second. But then the waves, I'm not even kidding you, are like 10 feet.
Honestly.
It was scary.
It was very scary.
Yeah. So then there was this guy out there though. So cute. And I swear he kept looking.
He did.
And I was like smiling, but I was like also not really being like I'm like smiling like for a moment and then like turning to you. And like it was just like nervous. I don't know. But I was also like, I really would love for him to come talk to us. And then I get absolutely annihilated, like destroyed, brought all the way back into the shore. I can't get back out. I think Ellie was watching me.
Oh, I was. Well, because I had nothing else to do. I was literally just sitting on my board with all of these like surfer people talking about the surf or whatever.
Well, you were talking to them?
No.
Oh.
They were talking. I was just there. I was like, I need to paddle away from them before they asked me to like, oh, catch this wave. And I'm like, oopsie, missed it. So I kept watching you, and like I would watch you get back on and paddle out, and then I'd turn around and then I'd look back and you'd still be in the same exact position. Or like you would come up. I love when we come up and the hair is like this, and I'm
all
like,
over
oh, she did great. Looked great.
Yeah. My leash, I have a bruise on my shin because my leash wrapped around and like yanked me. Anyway, this really long-winded story is because that is one example where I could have really practiced being like saying something. Like when I paddled back, he was right there, you were right there, and I purposely was like, don't look at him, and like said something to you when I could have like made a joke that was like
engaging
and making like conversation and like whatever. Who cares if he didn't like, if he didn't say anything back and nothing happened from it, but at least I would have known that I like tried. And now I'm still thinking about it 3 days later because I'm like, what if I would have said something?
Yeah. I know.
And that's so annoying.
I think about that all the time. All the time. I do have to say though, like on maybe for anybody that can like more relate to like my side of things is I feel like now that I've kind of just like taken sex out of the equation, and of course like I'm always, we talk about this, like I'm always scoping, I'm always looking everywhere we go, I'm always like, who am I vibing with the most? Mm-hmm. But I also have just kind of like, I've not even like said it to myself, I haven't really said it as a rule, but I do feel like I'm not interested in sleeping with anybody right now because I want there to at least be some kind of connection. Mm-hmm. I recognize that like the first person that I talk to or that I sleep with isn't going to be like my partner, my lifelong partner or whatever, but I would at least not want it to be just a one night stand. Like I'm looking for a little bit more. So it really does help, for me at least, to now go into social interactions and not feel like, I feel like sometimes, wow, crazy, but like when we go out and we leave the club or the bar and it is 1 a.m. or it is 2 a.m. and we've had a fantastic night with each other, we've talked, we drink, we are laughing, we're just like having such a great time, we meet up with friends, we're talking with people because we're both outgoing people, whether it's like people that we're attracted to or not, like we can talk with people. There have been times, a lot more than I'd want to say, where I will leave those settings and come home and feel like I had a horrible night because I didn't have somebody tell me how fucking gorgeous I am. Or someone say, like, I want to take you home. Or go home with someone. Mm-hmm. And I always feel, and then it makes me, and that's a spiral within itself, because then I feel even more miserable because I'm like, I just had a fucking great night. Mm-hmm. Why does this mean that like my night sucked because I didn't get some? Like that doesn't make any sense. Yeah. I feel like now I've felt so much better about going, we haven't really like gone out like that in a minute, but hopefully when we do, but in other like social settings or interactions where we do go out or we do have a drink or it is just us, where there is potential for like us to have a one night stand or us to talk to people, I feel like when I let that idea go of like, I need someone right now to sleep with because it's been a long time, like I've removed that feeling, I have a better night. And then when I come home, I'm not beating myself up because I'm like, this is what I wanted the night to be. I didn't want to go home with anybody, so I feel better. And so in my mind, girl science, of like if I do that more and more and feel more comfortable, like the more open I'll be, the more approachable I'll be, maybe something will happen, or maybe I'll just finally get up the courage to be like, okay, I'm going to be bold and ask for their number or give them my number or literally just fucking say hi. It's literally all it takes. Because then I don't have to remove this like, okay, I've already said I'm not having sex. Like I don't want to. So if I'm just saying hi, like what's gonna happen here? Yeah. What's the worst? Like I've already said this, you see what I'm saying? So
no, that makes total sense.
On my end of like, maybe I'm not necessarily, especially in that setting of the surfing, I was like so anxious. I was like, we are now paddled past the last, guys, this was insane. So I'm like, I'm a little anxious. I don't feel like this is the setting where I can go out of my way to go say hi to these people, but I can at least like, now in a different setting, feel like, okay, I can have a good time and just worry about me, because that's literally all that matters right now. And I think once I kind of break that wall, that's where like real Ellie comes through, and that people can see that, and again, like I feel more approachable or more comfortable to go say hello to somebody.
I think that makes total sense, and you said what I feel like I've been trying to say for the last hour of like,
welcome to Polite as Fuck,
where we finally get to the point at the very end of the podcast.
Literally, I love it.
But like, yes, that is it. It's like the way meaningless sex, unless you're in that mental space where you can be like, this, I don't like, whatever, we have it or we don't, I feel fine with myself, I'm like, I still had a great night. That is really where you have to get to, I feel like, for you to be able to be at peace, or whatever the heck we want to say for this. And like, otherwise it's like, it does more harm than good. And
Yeah.
I feel like that girl science adds up because that is how you feel better.
Absolutely.
And that's how you, like, whether you're in a relationship and it's meaningful or not. And you can be in a relationship and feel that way.
100%.
It doesn't need to be that you're single. I feel like taking the time to really be like, it's always that, like, fall in love with yourself, fall in love with your life, which is like this cliche and it's hard and it's like, how do you do that? But I feel like this, like, really long-winded discussion was kind of how we're telling you to do that.
Yeah.
Or how
I
we're
do feel
figuring it
like
out.
recently, I thought about this too, and just looking through my camera roll, when I was having sex, or just like more confident in myself and feeling like I was in a work setting that I really enjoyed. I was, when my life felt like a little bit more put together, whatever that means, I was taking pictures of myself. Like I was taking selfies. I was trying on like lingerie or taking a picture like in my bra. Like not that I was sending it to anybody, but when you feel so good that you're wanting to take a picture of yourself and keep it on your phone, I've just like looked within the past like few months before, like maybe I think like summer start, before my vacation really, nothing. I did not take a single picture of myself. Like I really did not even feel comfortable enough to like in the privacy of my own home take a picture of myself. And I feel like now one thing that I would say to people that maybe are like feeling similar in a dry spell or whatever is like start just taking pictures of yourself, because I feel like so good. Sometimes they're like, oh my god, never mind, but at least like I'm trying, and the more and more I do that, I just feel like more confident in myself. And then I'm like, oh, like, a sexy picture, knowing that it's on my phone, knowing I'm not going to send it to anybody, it's just for me, feels like so good, and I feel like so hot. I'm like, god damn, I'm good looking. So yeah,
I love that. That
Take
is
some pics of
really
yourself.
true. Yeah. I feel like when you're like feeling yourself, when you do your whole little like photo shoot in your room, and then it's like, that was fun.
It's the best. It's the best feeling. And then I look back on those times where I do, and like even if I'm not posting them or like I said, sending them to anybody, I look through my camera roll and I see that and I'm like, that's me. Like I love that photo. I can bring back that like feeling of like confidence, just all around like happy, enjoying myself. And that's what I like. And so I can see how things are getting a little bit better now that I feel like more willing to do that more. Like little things like that.
Yeah. I feel like being able to put time and energy into yourself allows you to be able to put time and energy into other people, if that's what you want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're not having sex, take some pictures of yourself.
That's really it. That's all you need to do, and you're welcome.
Yeah, welcome, guys. Anyway, we love you guys. Hope you enjoyed. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.